tropical cyclones are known to have lashed Odisha, the highest number among other states on the coast. But over the years, Odisha has come a long way in its disaster management. Our next panel discussion is on the Odisha way of disaster management. Can it be a lesson for other states? Can I please invite my colleague M.G. Arun, Executive Editor of India Today, on stage, please? And can I also please invite his panelists, Mr. Pradeep Kumar Jaina, Development Commissioner cum Additional Chief Secretary in Revenue and Disaster Management Department, and Special Relief Commissioner, Shri Jagadanda, Social Activist and Member Secretary, Center for Youth and Social Development, and Mr. Basanta Kumar Kar, Development Expert.
Hello? Is the music on? Yeah. From floods to cyclones to droughts, Odisha has been at the receiving end of several natural calamities like Shweta had just mentioned. In a span of 2 decades, Odisha has encountered 10 cyclones, and it began with the super cyclone in 1999, which all of you are familiar with. From the super cyclone to 2019, the cyclone Fani, and the 2020 Yas, Odisha has come a long way. Since the cyclone Fani, the state has registered 0 casualties. So now the state, how has the state managed this particular feat? And what are the lessons that, several others can learn from it? Today we are joined by this distinguished panel of experts. Let me begin with Mr. Pradeep Kumar Jaina, who is the Development Commissioner cum Additional Chief Secretary in the government's Revenue and Disaster Management Department, who has got decades of experience in this. And in fact, he was telling me backstage how he was a young collector when the super cyclone happened in 1999. And he had seen how 10,000 lives were lost in that year. To now, when the state has brought down that particular death rate to 0. Mr. Jaina, if you can just give us an idea of what are the steps that the government has taken. What is the Odisha model when it comes to disaster management? What are the particular facets of it?
Thank you, Mr. Arun. In fact, Super Cyclone 99 not only was a watershed year for disaster management in Odisha, in fact, 3 disasters have redefined the way disaster is to be managed in this country. Basically, Super Cyclone 99, followed by 2001 Bhuj earthquake, and 2004 tsunami. And we know that during super cyclone, Odisha lost about 10,000 human lives. The infrastructure of half of the state was just not there. It collapsed. And livelihoods of about 18 million people. 18 million people was devastated. And from that stage, now we have come to a situation where we are able to achieve 0 human casualty during cyclone. Itself is a big, long journey and a very successful journey. So what happened in 99 that we have learned, and now we are doing something differently that I would like to say. The first thing was during 99, even the Indian Meteorology Department's predictive ability was pathetic. We used to get 3-line VHF message that a cyclone is likely to hit Odisha in and around Paradip. Beyond that, nothing. What time, at what speed, what path, what will be the impact zone, No information. That is the technology part. Then what happens? Whether the state was prepared, state didn't have any institution to manage, the Special Relief Commission was the lone officer to manage the disasters. Then you didn't have any infrastructure. In fact, when I made the mic announcement in 1999 that people should move to safe shelters, I as the district master didn't know what a safe shelter is. Where is it located? In fact, there are no pakka school buildings or any office building available. All the houses are residential houses of private people, are all asbestos houses. So without knowing where is a safe shelter, I used to advise people to move to the safe shelter. That was the situation. So what have we done in the last 20 years? In fact, in 99, it is the then Chief Minister of Chandrababu Naidu from Andhra Pradesh sent his teams to clear the road from Barampur side till Bhubaneswar Cuttack, and they restored our electricity, as well as they brought the 2 sets of satellite phones, because of which our Honorable Chief Minister could talk to Honorable Prime Minister. That was the level of preparedness in 99. But in 2022, we have seen 3 cyclones. In last 3 years, we have managed 6 cyclones. And every time, in fact, we have all our young collector boys and girls sitting here, all our young colleagues. It is they who are managing it. It is not that as SRC or the MD, OSDM, I manage. It is they who are managing the entire thing. And what have we done? We have put in place a disaster management framework. We are the first state to come up with a state disaster mitigation management authority. We are the first state to again form our own response force. And then what we have done, we have a good capacity building strategy. We prepare disaster management plan right from the state level down to the village level. Then we collaborate and partner with NGOs, CSOs and community-based organizations. And then we use technology very efficiently for assessment of the threats, for early warning dissemination, and also for post-disaster assessments. So using technologies then, and most importantly, what didn't happen in 99 and is making everything successful now, that's the same bureaucracy was there, same bureaucracy is right now also there. But the difference, the key differentiator has been the leader, the Chief Minister. His vision that, okay, cyclones are bound to visit Odisha being a coastal state. Does it mean thousands of people should die? And therefore the mission of every life is precious and we have to save every life, and therefrom the mission zero casualty emerged. And once the Chief Minister wants zero casualty, let me tell you, whichever state you go, if the Chief Minister wants to achieve something, his bureaucracy can never fail him. So that is what has made all the difference in last 20 years.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Jaina, in fact, what you said is extremely true, because you need to have leadership. And we have seen during the COVID times and also the various natural disasters which states have gone through, how certain states have seen leaders emerge. And I think the public also realizes it and rewards them, as appropriate. I would like to come to Shri Jagannanda. In fact, you had also been mentioning how, the civil society plays a huge role. Of course, the government takes, a huge step, but then it is complemented by the interaction with the civil society. If you could just give your, experiences from that, you as a member secretary of the Center for Youth and Social Development, if you can throw some light into that area.
Thank you, Arun. I think disaster opens a wonderful opportunity for everyone to come together so that you can respond to a crisis in a very planned way. That's a great opportunity, actually. And the opportunity in Odisha started in 99 super cyclone, because we were overwhelmed actually at that time. 10,000 people, lost, and we didn't know what to do. Government, civil society, all of us, we were absolutely in circles. From there, when we started our journey, I think after the current Chief Minister came in, the first ask of the civil society to him in a meeting in the Secretariat was, we need a single command agency in the state who should handle disasters. And thereafter, I'm sure other efforts in the government also must have happened. And the Odisha State Disaster Management Authority as was told by our development commissioner, came up and became a reality in the country and the first authority in the country. After this, then Gujarat State Disaster Management Authority came up. The National Disaster Management Authority came up. They're all after Odisha actually. Odisha really provided a model for the Disaster Management Authority to come up, and later on, the Disaster Management Act also to be enacted in this country in 2005. So, coming back to the civil society, three things we picked up at the civil society end. First is, that time we requested the government at the level of the Chief Secretary, and our request was very specific. Can you identify a senior officer who will facilitate the interaction between civil society and the government? And do the similar lines at the district end actually. And it was followed up very rigorously. We had a very senior officer who was handling the civil society part, and then civil society got into action. Out of the three things which we picked up from civil society action, community-based disaster preparedness emerged as a very strong point, very, very strong point from Odisha. And when it came up, government also came in, very strongly, and together the community-based disaster preparedness model was formulated actually. And that became a guideline for the country. The second issue which we picked up, how do you take care of the most disadvantaged, most, affected population who requires a special care, like orphans. When 10,000 people we lost, I still remember I went to a village. The village has lost almost 91% of the population. Only few scanty people were there. And when I was talking to them, they were all in big sannata actually. Sannata in the village, nobody was able to open up actually. Talking to people in a crisis, listening to their pains, listening to their agonies, listening to their frustrations, listening to their dreams, their own aspirations, is also a big ticket agenda in disaster response. By just listening, you deal with the trauma. So the second part was, how do you deal with the special needs? And I'm sure Basant will tell, Basant and the team that time started a very interesting program called Mamta. And the Mamta program was meant for, wives who have lost their husband, children who have lost their parents, a very, very special program. So that was the second. And the third part is, you see, after the disaster, livelihood is the huge challenge. How do how would people survive actually? Today I have seen government is very, very good now in response, immediate response. And what was mentioned by our additional chief secretary, the Odisha Disaster Response Force, now the National Disaster Response Force also has come in. The whole structure is ready actually. And in Odisha, the other advantage is the fire brigade and the fire services, they have roped in as a disaster response, what you call mechanism to deal with disasters. So they are not waiting for a fire to come, they can come. So today there is a multiple forces, but livelihood restoration, immediately starting something, giving hope to the people, giving, so that was a very interesting civil society learning for us. And so that is all I will say right now. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, in fact, you raised a very important point of, how the most vulnerable, the women and children are addressed. I mean, and I think that is where Mr. Basanta Kumar Kar can come in. He is a chief advisor, come mentor to the Coalition for Food and Nutrition Society. So if you can just, give your insights on how this was managed and what has been your experience in this.
Yeah, thank you so much, Arunji. Nostalgia haunts. So I am very fortunate today to be with Pradeep Janaji and also Mr. Jagdanand, who steered and also built the foundation of disaster management in Odisha. I am very happy. And at that time, under the leadership of Navin Patnaik, I'll talk about that. Disaster is defined as hazard plus vulnerability. If disaster is defined as a hazard plus vulnerability, Odisha disaster model stands unique and unparalleled in the world as hazard plus vulnerability divided by C. C stands for capacity and capability. I'll talk about that. The foundation was built in Odisha super cyclone. What Jagdan ji told, the first model on community-based rehabilitation of women and children at risk means we don't use those words, but for benefit of other audience, I am speaking. For the orphans and destitute women, generally they used to be referred to the orphanage and destitute homes. In the first time in the history of disaster management, to the best of my knowledge, also in Asia, this pilot started in Jagatsinghpur in Erasama, where all the destitute women and children who were orphans, they were rehabilitated at the community level. This is unique and unparalleled in the history of disaster management. I think you should give credit to the civil servants who supported us and also to the Chief Minister, number one. Number two, community mental health. Always, whenever you find disasters, there will be focus on brick and mortar, sand and clay. But caring, mental health, trauma, psychosocial counseling, the first foundation of such community mental health program also started in Odisha, aftermath of Odisha super cyclone, in partnership with Nimans. So that is Odisha's another contribution to disaster. Avoidable death model is also another exemplar model of Odisha. From 9,885 aftermath of in super cyclone 99 to 0 or to double digit, it itself is another year. I work on nutrition 7 into 1, 2, 3 years. Odisha is the exemplar state in not only in India but also in Asia, which also mainstreamed malnutrition and addressed malnutrition as a silent emergency. I'll tell you a few examples. If you look into National Family Health Survey 5, Odisha has demonstrated reduction of wasting. Odisha has demonstrated reduction of stunting. Odisha has demonstrated reduction of severe stunting, though children are always prone to death. In national level, it increased. And during COVID, always you will say, nutrition is a PP, personal protective equipment. Odisha introduced the first nutrition budget in India, not only in India, but also in South Asia. So there are many things we can come later.
Okay, wonderful. I want to come back to Mr. Pradeep Kumar Jaina. You were telling me that things don't stop here. I mean, just because, we have managed it successfully in the past years, it doesn't mean that, we can do it in future. We don't know the quantum of any disaster that can come anytime. And right now we even have, across the country, severe heat waves, including in Odisha. I want to ask you about, what are the preparations that you keep doing and what are the new models that keep developing in this? And also if you can give us an idea of how you share this with other states, because, there were some examples you were mentioning of how you go to other states, including Maharashtra, Kerala, etc.
Okay. See, no two disasters are same. Every disaster is different because one is geographic area it affects. Second, the ferocity, the intensity is different. And maybe sometime a cyclone will only have wind action, may not have flood. A cyclone can have flood, can have storm surge, and can also have tsunami. So, no two cyclones can be same. So therefore, that you have prepared for one cyclone doesn't mean that you will be able to do better in the next cyclone. So that means, after the cyclone or any disaster event is over, there is a need to analyze whether things have gone right. Is there any shortcomings, wrong things, wrong practices, and is there anything to be learnt out of it? So once you do that exercise and take those learning to prepare for the next event, and in fact the peacetime exercise is always more important if you want to win the war. So during the peacetime, how do you engage people, build their capacity, build the capacity of your system, that also determines your success. Then what happens? Okay, there are many good practices in Odisha. And now Odisha, wherever there is a disaster management conference, Odisha has to be invited to go and speak there. Along with that, now we have it tied up with Lal Bahadur Shastri Academy of Administration, where they send their IAS officers, in-service officers to Odisha to be trained in disaster management. Further, few states Bihar sends their officers, Assam sends their officers, and also Maharashtra. Maharashtra has sent 3 batches of officers whose capacity we are developing here. So every state has something to offer, and we have some strengths. That is what we are sharing with others. But then there are also some good practices other states have, like use of GIS technology by Karnataka and Andhra Pradesh. We are also learning from them and trying to improve our GIS modeling. And what is more important, how do you standardize? In fact, this is a small booklet which fits into my pocket. This booklet has been designed drawing upon the experience of last 8 cyclones, floods. And here, collectors and officers down below can have it in pocket, and what is their roles and responsibilities, what are the do's and don'ts.
So it's a handbook on cyclones.
Yes.
Goes into your pocket and you carry it every time, is it?
So if you are a CDMO, you will only read that 20, 30 lines, what you are supposed to do and what you are not supposed to do. If you are a collector, what you have to do, what you don't have to do. At least this is a checklist which provides you shortcut to immediately manage the situation. In fact, you must have seen in the election, none of the collectors commit any error, only because of some well-drafted SOPs in the form of a handbook. And then we have designed this small pocket book. In fact, one of our collector who was working with me, Dr. Kamal Misra, he was instrumental in preparing this. So you have to codify things. You have to train your people on a regular basis. And then, most importantly, how do you empower your community-based organizations and PRIs? Elected representatives at the ground level, they are the best bet in managing disaster situations. Be it COVID, be it a natural disaster, they are your strength. So how do you empower them? How do you create trust? But that doesn't mean there are no challenges. We have a lot of challenges ahead. In fact, Jitendra is sitting in front of us. If you ask him to share, he will share his frustrations, what is not happening and what should happen. So there are many challenges also, but that doesn't mean we can't move ahead. And slowly and gradually we will also incorporate other things to emerge as a leader in this field.
Right. So preparing for the worst case scenario is always important. I want to bring in Mr. Jagannathan. There are so many things that we hear about Odisha where the micromanagement of things are so important. Sir also just mentioned it as to how you need to empower the people at the grassroots to enable tackle these disasters. So if you can just give an idea of that kind of a model, how it works, because we have heard stories of how even everything was taken care of in advance before the cyclone strikes. There is a particular way in which the evacuation happens. Even women who are supposed to deliver babies are taken care of, and special treatment is given to them much in advance. So how does that work?
I would share 2 ideas. The first idea relates to rescue and evacuation. The revenue administration, if there is a disaster in our state, both the development administration and the revenue administration, it's a year-long affair for them. Picking up people, putting them in the cyclone shelter, arranging food for them, and sending them back home, then assessing the damage, and nobody is happy in the damage assessment. Everybody is grumbling, everybody is murmuring. So it becomes a huge challenge for both development administration and our revenue administration. So therefore, that challenge, today the good part of the story is all the cyclone and flood shelters in our state are community managed, are supposed to be community managed. They are owned by almost the panchayats. That transfer has taken place, which is a very good thing actually. So they are there. But the hindsight of it is, today, after the damage assessment is done, government comes with some housing assistance, this, that. I think Odisha in the coastal area requires a complete movement for converting kacha house to pakka house, so that people can stay in their home and face the disaster rather than running to a disaster shelter. And it becomes a Herculean task for the administration to manage that. that can be done. The most vulnerable people, government can take care of them. Others can own a house actually. We have to create a movement where people-owned housing can take place. And we have a model in Super Cyclone, Asra model, which was initiated by Care India. Owner-driven housing actually. Owner-driven housing, a big program where National Housing Bank can come, other banks can come, government can really come in a big way, and people, it becomes a housing movement. And in a post-COVID situation, if we get into a housing movement in the coastal area, it will open a new economy, altogether, right? So that is one. The second issue is, climate change has affected the state. We are all victims of the climate change issue now. We have become very vulnerable now. But at the same time, this is the state which contributes highest per capita CO2 emissions actually. So we are the reason for the climate change effect, and we are also the cause for climate change effect. So that requires a very creative planning because we are a coal-bearing state, the fossil fuel has to be exploited, and that is the major reason for the CO2 emission. So that requires a very creative approach for adaptation and mitigation. These two things, if that happens, I'm sure we will go to the next level.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Carr, is there any, maybe a couple of points from you? What would you expect? Is there something more that you could do? Be it tackling the nutrition issue that you talked about or disaster management?
Yeah, I'll just summarize in 3 points that could be the future expectations. What Jagdanji told about climate change. Within climate change framework, soil is losing the fertility. If you analyze the Bengal famine in pre-independence, it was because of the soil infertility. That is the core. That is the new research is saying. So addressing soil fertility will be key because there is a coastal, there are also salinity, there are also soil fertility, soil erosion. So that will be important for Odisha to deal with. Skilling human resource. Whenever I am saying skilling human resource, I am talking about human resource at the system level, government, and also building resilience capacity of the community will be key. And for skilling, you have to invest on good nutrition because first 1,000 days is key and important. Only you miss 1,000 days, starting from pregnancy to 2 years of age, then cognitive potentiality will be affected because good nutrition can supercharge demographic dividend. So investing on good nutrition for a better skilled, talented, resilient society will be necessary for Odisha. Thank you.
Wonderful. I mean, listening to both these gentlemen, Mr. Jaina, would you like to sum up?
As Mr. Jagdan pointed out, we have done very well when it comes to response management. But then response has 3 parts: pre-disaster, during disaster, and post-disaster. And in all the 3 phases, by and large, we have done well. Then what is the most important thing? Okay, some people have lost something, how do they recover? That recovery strategy is the most important thing. That means there are 2 aspects. Apart from response, there is mitigation and adaptation requirements. And mitigation is something very cost intensive, high capital cost. And if you have observed Odisha in last 3 years, our Honorable Chief Minister, whenever Honorable Prime Minister has visited Odisha, in fact 3 times in 3 years, and every time our Honorable Chief Minister has requested Honorable Prime Minister not to give us any response fund. We will manage somehow. In case Government of India, in fact during COVID time, Honorable Chief Minister asked Honorable Prime Minister not to give any money. We will manage somehow. But he said, if the national government, central government wants to help us, kindly help us in long-term mitigation measures, like housing, and thankfully both state government and central government together, now we are going to take up about 8 lakh houses in coastal area. That would take care of the housing stock, convert kacha houses to paka houses. The other thing is, your power infrastructure is the most vulnerable to any wind action. So unless you have a resilient power infrastructure, come what may, it will impact not only immediate response, but also the livelihood generation, industry, so it will impact adversely your economy. So for that thing, underground cabling, then NBLS towers, all higher specification things which are very costly. And third one is to save the coast from getting eroded due to storm surge and tsunami. So a coastal protection system. So these are the three things which our Honorable Chief Minister has always demanded, and for immediate needs, he has always requested that no, don't give us any fund, we will try to manage from within our budget.
That's wonderful. I think you are one of the, maybe the only state which is telling the center not to give us any funds. We'll manage on our own. Kudos to that. And thank you so much, all three, for enlightening us with a whole variety of aspects related to disaster management. Thanks again, and thanks the lovely audience, despite being lunchtime. You are here. Thanks.
Thank you very much, MG, and a big thank you to all our panelists. It's a fascinating story about how Odisha has scripted this fantastic turnaround and so many lessons from here for the other states. Can I please invite Mr. Praveen Kumar and Mr. S.C. Mohanta to please come and felicitate our guests.